Most bankers aren't ready to help you until after their third cup of coffee. But with Central National Bank's after-hours service, you don't have to wait for the bank lobby to open to get help. You can contact us from 6 to 8:30 in the morning or from 5 to 10 in the evening, and we'll connect you to a real, live, local person who can answer questions and fix problems 7 days a week. Bank different. Bank Central. Central National Bank. Member FDIC.
Hey, what's up, Blazer fans? Welcome to the Blazers Edge podcast, part of the Almighty Baller Radio Network. You can find us on Stitcher or Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Tara, and I am joined by Uncle Dan Marang. Dan, your family has a new addition. Congratulations on your new nephew.
Yes, this is my first little boy that I get to see, so I'm still pretty stoked. I had somebody ask me the other day if what Blazers jersey I was going to get him. And I was honestly stumped. I'm like, do I go old school or do I go new school for him? Like, So I have a decision to be made.
Yeah, well, so what do you think from your first glimpse? Does he look like a guard, like a forward, like a big man?
He's got some swing man to him. He just
versatile.
Yeah, the hair game is already really strong. So
it's not going to get in the way when he takes shots, is it? Like
no. He's definitely not an Alfred Payton. But the hair game, the lettuce is definitely strong right now. So we're hoping.
Well, congratulations to the family. That's very exciting.
So speaking of exciting, you got to come, or you're just coming home from, as we're recording Sunday night, from a rather close Blazers win at home in the statement jerseys against the San Antonio Spurs.
Oh my gosh, yes. Just getting home from the Spurs game. Now, so Mr. Team Mom and I have a rating system for Blazer games. It might not be elegant, but it's how we rate games. And those are based on whether or not, of course, the Trailblazers win, whether or not we have to go to work the next day, and then because we ride our bikes to the games, whether or not it's raining on the way home. So like Friday
that
was
scale
like
must get really crappy in the winter.
Well, you'd think, but I mean, it's a good scale. We're reliable about always grading things. It's pretty clear, pretty cut and dry. So like Friday was like a great game. It was a perfect game because it was on Friday, so we didn't have work the next day. It was a win against Atlanta, and it wasn't raining, so that was awesome. But going into tonight's game was like a whole other. We were like really nervous about how it was going to turn out because it's Sunday, so we had work in the morning. The Blazers were playing against a team that was better than them, and it's been raining all day. So it was so great that the Blazers got the win, and it wasn't raining on our way home. So it was a 2 out of 3, which is pretty much a great way because it could have been an absolute 0 game. So I'm feeling great about that.
And you haven't even mentioned the fact that not only was all of that going on, you had no Damian Lillard.
Right, exactly. Yeah, well, so let's talk a little bit about what the Blazers have looked like over the last week since we last talked. I don't want to, get too far ahead of myself here, but I feel like the Blazers have made some positive strides over the last week. What can you tell me about what you've seen over the last several games that you think the Blazers can build on?
Oh, so we're going to go ahead and build up the positive things so we can go ahead and discard those in next week's podcast. Dan. We're going to throw those out in next week's podcast when they go 0-3 on the road trip, or 3-1 or 1-3 on the road trip. Have you not learned? Have you not learned?
There's been some dark days, but we have to call it out when things are going well, right?
I feel like it's like an opposite world. Like the things that shall not be named in the Blazers universe are like nice things, because as soon as you speak the nice things into existence, they're gone. It's so painful. And yes, I just made a Harry Potter reference because I sat down over the last few days because I've been babysitting my niece, and I sat down since we made fun of awful movies last week. I sat down to watch all of Harry Potter so I could no longer criticize it one way or the other. And I think I'm like 5 movies in over the past 8 days. So I'm getting.
How do you feel about them?
You know what? They're not bad. They get better as you go.
So there's stuff to build on in the Harry Potter universe, just as there's stuff to build on in the Blazers.
Exactly. Things to build on. Shabazz Napier. I like that. Let's see. Harkless's play when Damian Lillard is out. So, I mean, it's a limited window, but it's a good one. Pat Connaughton being the best cutter and dunker on the team right now. Let's see. What else do we have? Ed Davis is continuing to play well. Those are all things I think you can count on now. So when Dame goes down, you can count on Maurice Harkless to have some useful minutes. Shabazz Napier can step up into that role. I'd like to say CJ you could count a little bit more. I think you can count on more of CJ's raw production right now and not as much his consistency, which I think is a good thing. Like, there were times this season where CJ didn't have the consistency or the raw production. And when Dame's out, you got to find a way to get those numbers however you can get them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because so it sounds to me like you're saying that at this point in the year, even with Dame out, CJ has been able to more reliably score, and he's being asked to do less of like all the other things that he was also supposed to be previously doing to carry the team when Dame would be out.
Like tonight, he had I think I said a season high in assists or tied a season high. I was listening to the post game. I wasn't 100% certain on that. Let's see, assists tonight 7. I think he had 8 game assists, so second highest. Shabazz followed up with 7 tonight too, so they were moving the ball well between the two guard positions. But I mean, like I said, when we're talking about raw production, yay, CJ got 25 points. Boo, it took 24 shots to get there. Like it's a bummer that it took that many shots to get there, but it's also nice to see that he's getting 25 points because there were times this season, even with Dame, where he just kind of fell out. He'd have like 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 points, and those were games that, like, even if Dame gives you 25, 28, you weren't getting that because you weren't getting the secondary production, whereas the last few games, Harkless, Nurkic, Napier, Connaughton, Aminu, Turner have all taken turns delivering good games. We had one game was it the Hawks game? I believe it was the Hawks game. 7 players were in double figures. I think that's the only time this season Portland's done that. Like that's up and down the lineup getting it done.
I feel obligated to put on my Dan flat build hat and say, it was the Atlanta Hawks.
Yeah. And for reference, for the guy who hates my hat, it's not a flat bill. It's just not rolled all the way over because I can't have it covering my eyes when I'm on TV. Like that's a real thing. They allow me to wear a hat. Like that alone says enough about what's going on there. So just quit criticizing my hat, people.
Well, my point though is, a couple of the opponents that the Trailblazers have played in the last week, one of them was Chicago, who has a terrible record but has admittedly been playing a lot better, and included the return, Nikola Mirotic is now back, and so he's made a huge difference to that team. But the Blazers were able to put them away, and they were able to take revenge on the Atlanta Hawks and play against them the way that people were really expecting that they should have played the first time. But what can we really take? Because what I saw, and, if we want to talk, if you want to talk about positive things, I will talk about positive things. I saw an effort that I don't feel like we've been able to count on more recently. It's also with the game against Cleveland, even though they ended up blowing it. And
that's probably why I'm petty about this, is because those are things you should just be able to count on.
Right. But I feel like we're getting back to, because earlier in the season I thought we could count on some stuff, but I don't know, something must happen in the middle.
I'm sensing a trend here.
What?
Things we thought we could count on that are no longer there, that are back again, that are no longer there, that are back again.
So you're saying inconsistency?
Consistently inconsistent.
Yeah. Well, that's not exactly like a hot take. But
we're not quite peaking now. We're riding the wave to the top.
Right. And I brought this up last week, and I continue to see it, and I'm wondering if you could speak and tell me whether or not it's still just me. Okay,
it's always just you.
Evan Turner continues with his strong play. Is he's playing learning how to fit in? Is he fitting in better to the current system, or
he's being more aggressive?
Is he still playing just because he's playing with starters?
He's playing with starters, and the floor is opening up for him, and he's playing more aggressive. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Mm-hmm. There were games where he would attempt like 3 or 4 shots, and that was it. Like tonight, he took 9 shots. He was 4 of 9. He had 8 points, a rebound, and assist. and a block in 24 minutes. I believe it was him and Nurkic and CJ were the only guys that registered or were close to registering. Basically, the starters registered a negative plus minus tonight because they kind of had a rough patch there before that second unit group.
Davis and Zach Collins came in.
Not even those guys really. It was Harkless and Connaughton for me that really swung everything tonight. How efficient!
Harkless had a great game tonight against San Antonio.
The way that those two, and I've harped on this on Twitter over the last couple of weeks about Connaughton being the best cutter on this team. Like, how many times tonight, when Connaughton's first shift, did he cut down the middle of the defense and draw everyone in and still manage to finish? Like, it was.
And he's also apparently the only guy who dunks.
Yeah.
Anymore.
Like and those are easy points. And we talked about this earlier in the season, like with Maurice Harkless. The Blazers are a terrible fast break team, transition team, because they feature two guards in CJ and Dame who aren't big, strong guys who like to just drive through everybody and dunk. What do Pat Connaughton and Maurice Harkless give the opportunity to do? Drive the middle and dunk on people. Like Harkless tonight, people wanted to say Harkless needs the ball more. Harkless needs to run the damn floor. Because you can see it
and
tonight.
then he'll get the ball more.
Exactly. Like if you generate a turnover and you run the floor as Harkless, there's nobody else in this team that's going to run the floor like you. Like if you take that opportunity, you're going to get the ball. Like there's nobody that's going to cut into those possessions. I think the only other person besides Pat is Napier, and Napier is going to do it himself. Like he's going to generate a steal and go coast to coast because he's so fast. Mm-hmm. And I think we've seen some of that from all those guys over the last few games, and that's been really fun. Like you want fun things from me is those guys doing those things, because those are defined skill sets that they bring to the table that the Blazers, for whatever reason, weren't taking advantage of, whether it was because personnel weren't doing them or they weren't getting the opportunity, a la Shabazz and Connaughton.
So the Blazers are slowly adding more fast break points to their game. I think they're still pretty far down there, but they are adding more fast breaks as the season goes on. Another thing that they have been very low in all season is assists, and they have also been climbing up in terms of, assists per game. They were dead last for quite a while. If you isolate the last 10 games, they are number 24, and then over the last 5 games, they're number 17 in the league in assists.
Yeah, that
30 what do you attribute that?
That 30 assist game is huge. I think part of
an outlier, yeah.
Yeah, but it's going to bump them up. It looks good. I think it's a good thing. Honestly.
But why do you think it's happening more?
I think it's because it's less reliance on Dame. Guys are like Harkless are getting out, and it's a double-edged sword. I think guys are working harder to get opportunities because they know they have to. I think it's partly not Dame's fault. I think it's Dame's fault, in air quotes, that he's so good that he can get a shot at any point in time. That guys below him in the pecking order fall back on that. Not just Dame, the guys below him. They know that late shot clock situation, they don't need to make that cut because Dame's going to get his shot, and that's what's going to happen. As opposed to, and I think a lot of this too has been Nurkic has been supremely better about, one, scoring and being more of a focal point, and 2, passing. Over the last few games, Nurkic has had some of the best cuts or the best passes to cutters on the season. He had a couple bounce passes to Aminu against the Hawks. He found Connaughton tonight cutting through the middle. He found Harkless tonight cutting through the middle. And that's another thing.
It seems like he regularly has a couple of and he's regularly having a couple of little pocket passes.
Yeah,
every game.
Absolutely beautiful, pristine, on point, on timed, perfect passes. That again, those are free points for a team like Portland, who's the worst field goal percentage team in the paint. Guess what? Those wide open layups and dunks, those are easy points. Those are free points that allows your offense to get. Terry Stotts tonight in the post game, he lit up like a Christmas tree when he said, "Hey, we scored 111 points." He's like, "Yeah, it's nice that we're 5th in defensive rating like that." That was the afterthought. Like he genuinely likes and appreciates, the quote unquote beautiful game. when the ball's humming around, when guys are scoring, when guys are doing things they need to do in order to be successful. And I think we've seen less of that this season than a lot of people expected.
Right. You know, and it goes back to, and it's something that we should look at the very end of the season. Did the increase in defense really affect the offense, or is it something else?
I think that's going to be there. Like, that effect's going to be there.
The defenses continue to be good defense. Don't you think?
Yeah, I think it's fallen off a little bit, but I think that was expected.
Yeah, they started off
they
with
need
a
to
couple
find
of
the
games
balance.
Yeah.
I think they're getting to where they're not the Utah Jazz. They're not going to grind you down, slow it down, make it an ugly game, which they've been pretty successful at, or they were pretty successful at early on in the season. They had a couple games there where it was like, they're winning games really ugly. I don't know if I enjoy this yet, because yay wins, but the basketball itself, when you're so used to the Stotts fence and how egalitarian the offense is, where everybody has an equal opportunity, to just see it just grind to a halt, it was kind of jarring. And I think that by the end of the season, the defense will still be right around a top 10 unit. I think that's where they'll ultimately end up as far as balance goes.
Okay. Can we just pause for a minute there? Can you say that again to make sure that we're recording?
Yeah, no, I said this a few weeks ago.
Top 10 defense.
I said this a few weeks ago. I think they'll end up somewhere between 12 and 10, or 13 and 10. I think is what I said. Like, they'll be in the upper half. Which
I think we need to sit with that and appreciate that for a minute, because with the last few years, that is not. I don't know.
I mean, you
feel like
you can attribute the biggest chunk of it to having Nurkic for a full season, or as close to a full season as possible, and CJ and Dame picking up the defensive intensity, like not being absolute turnstiles on the perimeter, like just getting 50% more production from those guys.
Right, CJ and Dame set the tone.
Yeah,
but we also have, but there are some just genuinely good defenders. I mean, Amino all along has been a good defender.
Amino's been fantastic. Pat Connaughton's effective. Napier's the peskiest.
Napier.
Yeah, Napier getting more minutes is going to help, because you're going to generate turnovers. So
yeah, I don't know. Sounds awful positive. Dan.
And Ed Davis has been healthy, and so he's been effective.
Yeah. I have a question about Nurkic before we get too far off the topic with him.
How great was his post move tonight? That's what you're going to ask me, right? It was the best post move I've ever seen from him.
You mean all night? Are you thinking of the specific one?
No, the one where he went to the middle and then went to the hop step back the other way and left LaMarcus in his dust.
He did a LaMarcus to LaMarcus?
No, that was like Hall of Fame level footwork. Like what he showed there, when I talk about the hashtag feet work, like that right there, that's why I get so giddy about him, because there's very, 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 very few people in the world that are that big, that move that gracefully, that efficiently, that effectively. And when you see that come together, you're like, oh, it's glorious. And then you see him throw up the weakest finger roll you've ever seen in your life, and you're like, you son of a, I'm gonna kill you.
Yeah.
Like the frustration level is so wild.
Okay, my question was going to be, really, why do you think he doesn't dunk as much as most 7-footers? Why do you suppose that's a product of the way he learned how to play?
Probably part of it is how he learned how to play. Part of it is, I think.
And how can he learn how to do it?
The intensity, There's probably.
It doesn't seem like he'd be afraid of taking anybody on. I mean, that just doesn't seem like an issue.
I think that mentally, this. I have no hard evidence. This is just me hot taking here. I think him and CJ and there's a few other guys in the NBA, I think don't like going right to the rim because they've had ankle and feet and leg injuries. And when you
go, they don't like the crowd.
Like coming down in the crowd.
Okay.
Like I think that's my working theory, at least, and I don't think it's like this. Like they're terrified of it. I just think there's a mindset that I can be damn good at what I do without having to throw my body in there and rack up injuries. I mean, you got to remember, CJ missed basically 2.5 years to start his career.
Yeah.
With ankle and foot
With all
injuries.
his foot injuries, yeah.
Like it was not a great start for him, and to be able to basically stay healthy since then, you know, where does he avoid going into a lot? Into the paint, like under the rim paint. He gets in the paint and gets to the floaters and the runners and stuff like that. Look at Nurkic. He's much the same way. Like, how often do you see him getting really, really deep and going through bodies in traffic?
He took so many mid-range shots tonight. It felt like more than half of his shots were mid-range. And I was just like, why don't you go?
Yeah, because he was putting in work in the post. He was absolutely putting in work in the post. And it was like, Nurk, buddy, if you could go back in there and do what you were doing, I would be very, very thrilled. And like I think he took 4. Yeah, he took 4 mid-range jump shots tonight. He was 1 of 4 from mid-range, and he missed 2, 4, 5 shots at the rim, I think is what it ended up being. Mm-hmm. So I mean,
wow. He missed 5 shots at the rim.
Let's see. I have my filters set up here. So made shots, missed shots. Missed shots sorted by distance. He missed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shots within 2 feet. So
well, you know, like you always say, and which I take great solace in, he's still really young and he still has a lot to learn. So, you know,
we saw the full spectrum on display. Like
dunking,
how good he can be versus how frustrating he can be, and I think that's Nurkic in a nutshell. I think worst case scenario, I think we have the center version of Nicholas Batum in use of Nurkic. Like, you see a guy who shows flashes of absolute brilliance. Like, I mean, you could say the same thing about Nick even now. There are times when he looks like Scottie Pippen. Like, Nurkic shows flashes of, like, Kevin McHale-esque footwork. That's not hyperbole. Like, his footwork is absolutely immaculate at times. And then you see stuff where you're like, dude, what are you doing? If he ever does
need to watch tape together, so you can point out to me what it is that's so beautiful about his footwork. Because I think you know, like, yeah, he did some stuff, but I want you to point out exactly what it is that he is doing.
I'm actually
makes you react like that.
As we're doing this tonight, I'm going to record or start my record on his what he was
just
able
focusing
to do.
on his feet.
Yeah, I'm gonna put together my Nurkic playlist for you. Load it up on Spotify.
Good. I look forward to that. Okay, well, so let's move on to the next topic, unless you want to say anything about things to build on from the last several games.
No, I think there are certainly some things to build on, and for the first time in a while, it feels like there's more positive things to build on than negative things. I just don't like saying it out loud.
I'm gonna remember that and mark down this date, the day that Dan said there were positive things. Well, so speaking of positive, you know, last week we talked a lot about why you didn't think that the Blazers' struggles fell on Coach Stotts.
Yeah, that was a heck of a rabbit hole.
Yeah. Well, and Jason Quick recently came out with an article where he talked directly to the players about that very topic. So what did you think about that article and what Jason Quick found out from the players? Did you learn anything new?
Yeah, no, I was angry that Jason Quick didn't start the question with Dan Marang of Blazers Edge says this. Do you agree?
God, get over yourself, dude. Good God. How do you walk into a room, I mean, with that ego?
No, I don't.
Make it through the doorway?
I typically don't. I usually have somebody announce me first.
Yeah. You also have usually somebody setting you up with questions. I wonder who that could be. I
do it all on my own. But in all seriousness, it wasn't surprising. Like, we went over basically how the relationship between Dame and Stotts is basically solidified, and it's like that rank and file down. There are these types of things, like when you look at these types of situations and you get the dreaded vote of confidence. I think this was the opposite of that. This is basically the players saying, anybody who's saying this is on Stotts, you're absolutely brain dead. Like, we need to be better as players.
I thought it was really interesting in that article that he pointed out that it's actually become kind of a rallying point for the players.
Yeah, I think that was the case in Chicago. I think that they knew that if they dropped that game, that their coach's job could be in serious jeopardy. I was hearing things from
against Portland.
Yeah, the Portland-Chicago game when they were on the road after losing to the Hawks. I had heard a few things.
You think that the Portland players were very concerned about their coach after that loss?
I think that going into that Chicago game, that they realized that they better get it going. They better get it together. Because if they dropped another game that they should, quote-unquote, win handily, with or without Dame, I don't care how Chicago's playing at that point in time. They're still the Chicago Bulls. They're a team that's fighting, they're fighting, I guess if you can say that, fighting for the top draft, and actually fighting for the top draft pick. I don't care how good they're playing, how bad you're playing, you figure that out, and they did, to their credit. So for them to come out and say that, Dame's exact quote was, I think it's unanimous for a reason, Lillard said. Like I always say, we play for a great person. Whatever struggles that we have, it's not his fault. I will tell you that. It's not his fault. Flat out, it's not his fault. Yeah. That's what it comes down to. And then again, they're not just talking about him as a coach. They're talking about the relationship that they had with him as a person. That's why I think that they're more than willing to go above and beyond to lay it all out on the line for them, which also kind of makes you wonder why that it takes this situation to get to that point.
Right. Well, if that ends up being what the rallying cry was, and if they end up, coming out and fighting for their coach and figuring some things out, then that's exactly what needed to happen. I'm glad if it meant that there had to be a lot of talk out in public that trickled out to the players and that made them mad and it made them redouble their efforts, then job well done.
Yeah, I don't know. I just hate the fact that it takes basically the threat of the coach being fired for them to kind of get it together. I think that kind of plays into some of the questioning of this team. That's what it takes for your rally. Yes, I appreciate that they did kind of get it together, but that's what it takes to become the rallying cry. That frustrates me a little bit.
Well, and also how much of it is just, is it magnified because of the, hyper focus on this team?
And the Atlanta loss, definitely. You want to talk about burning a spotlight. That when you lose to that team, yeah. That's just. It
certainly felt good to have that rematch on Friday and to really put them away.
And handily put them away like you should have the first time. Yeah, absolutely.
That was a perfect game on the Team Mom and Mr. Team Mom rating scale.
And see but hey, going back to another point, that's a style point game. How you win that game matters.
Okay. So that was an extra good win. That wasn't just a good win.
You've beat me up on this
even
before.
Even a win against a poor team ended up being a good win. Because if it had been just, a win over another team with a bad record, it could have been just an okay win. But because what was it about it that made it an extra special good win?
Because that was the way you should have handled them the first time. And it showed that hey, we've got our focus. We're this is how it should have been. And yes, it sucks that we dropped this the first time because we overlooked it, but this is how it should have been. That you showed the capacity and the capability to go out there and handle business as a professional. That's certainly above the Atlanta Hawks. There's no way, objectively or subjectively, that you could look at the Atlanta Hawks roster and the Portland Trail Blazers roster and go, yeah, that should be a close game. That doesn't happen.
Well, I gave you my game rating system, and I would like to know what your game rating system. How do you judge a good? You don't have to come up with it tonight, but I expect some sort of a presentation within a week.
Oh no, I'll have something for you.
What your rubric is?
I'm just gonna give you a full on 38-page case study. You wouldn't even be able to Google it.
Right. No, I just want the rubric. I just want to know. What are the things that yes or no have to be done to be a good win,
I'm going to submit it to
bad
Sloan.
Win, a good loss, a bad loss? I just want to know what the definitions of all those things are. So you can ruminate on that for a while.
Okay.
But I want to ask you a question because we were just talking about Chicago, and it is, we're in the beginning of January. January 15th is right around the corner, and that's a day that a whole bunch more, the final players
basically
are going to become available.
Yeah.
We've got trade deadline approaching, and we've got Nikola Mirotic looking for a new home. And a lot of Blazers Twitter I have seen, well, maybe not a lot, but I've seen several people on Blazers Twitter talk about why Mirotic would be a fit in Portland.
Yeah, he's big.
What do you think about that? And what would Portland have to give up, do you think?
I'm dying. He's
you all
big.
right over there?
Yeah, no, I'm like I said, I'm dying.
Well, that's not good, Dan.
He's big, he's semi-athletic, and he can shoot. Like, those are things that Portland lacks at the forward position. Dave Deckard and I have talked about Mirotic and trading to Portland for what feels like since like the 1970s. He just comes up because,
given the assets that they have right now.
I mean, assets now. This like even before like guys like Crabbe were inked to big deals. Like, this is something we talked about. Like, it just seemed like the right kind of fit, because Portland was lacking shooting at the forward position. This is before they figured out that Aminu could turn into that kind of shooter, before Harkless showed he could hit 35%. So it was like one of those things where, like, and this is before Mirotic really has consistently shown that he could shoot. It was one of those things where, like, in theory, he could fit in Portland well. And now that the in theory has become the reality, I'm afraid the price tag is going to be too high for Portland to really make anything happen. Like, what motivates the Chicago Bulls? But is he in a unique
situation because he wants out?
I think that helps the leverage for not just Portland, but any team. But at the same time, like, even if Chicago keeps him, like, what are they worried about? Like, the toxicity in the locker room full of players that they're not going to keep past the next year or two? Like, if you look at their roster, the guys they're going to keep are going to be Levine, Dunn, Markkanen, maybe Portis. Like, beyond that, you're filling it with, like, random. It's the same situation you're looking at with the Lakers right now. Like, the way they keep talking about how they're going to bring in stars and how so many of the young guys are going to be gone. Like, is Mirotic really in the position to, like, to cause a lot of tension in the locker room? I mean, worst case scenario, he gets punched again. You know, I mean, I hate to say it, but, like, clearly, like, these things have, like, it's already been bad. Yeah, so, like, how much worse can it get?
Like, if you said, though, that they're trying to position themselves as best they can for a high draft pick, maybe they're
from that point of view,
for a different lineup.
That makes sense. Like, if you're going back to the point of, hey, we need to go back to sucking more, we need to move him. But in that case, like, what are you moving him for? And was Portland willing to offer a draft pick? Like,
do you think they would only do it for a draft pick, or would they do it for? You know, would they take on money if they took a draft pick?
That's the thing, is that they have the ability to, so that's what you're anticipating, I think, if you're Portland. I think the reality of it is they would want somebody that's young, you know, let's go with the timeline
like
here. Yeah, and that's exactly where I was going to go, is Vonleh. If Vonleh would be included in the trade, that would possibly entice them, because they get a young guy. Because I think Vonleh is going to be able to re-signed for relatively cheap. I think he's going to go up a little bit higher than people expect, but he's going to cost some money. The Bulls have the capacity to do that, to take a flyer on him, and maybe they get him a bit cheaper than he would any other year because of the way the market is. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. But something else needs to go in the pot in order to make the trade happen, because Mirotic makes $12 million. So
here's something else I've seen mentioned. Do you think it's possible that, like, the Blazers don't offer a draft pick, but they might offer last year's draft pick, and that somebody like Collins, who's now people have seen him a little bit, do you think he might actually be on the table, or is that just, like, not done?
I think he's on the table if we're talking about something bigger. Like,
as an included piece, but not like the centerpiece.
Because like when you talk about Collins, because he's still so new, the line hasn't been set on him league wide of what he's going to be, or what he could turn into. I know there's a wide spectrum as far as what scouts and people in the league believe he can and can't do. But that may play in Portland's favor. But as far as like a Mirotic deal, no.
You're right. Well, yeah, no, I don't see that they would be wanting to. That certainly would, I don't think, be a straight up. I don't think it could be because of the money. Or do they, because of Chicago's situation, Are they under? I don't want to get into the fine things of it, but my curiosity was like, do you think Colin is everybody on the table basically who's not named Dame or CJ, including our foundational new player for the next 12 to 15 years?
Yeah, I think in the right deal, Collins could let's say Evan Turner's contract is movable if somebody's really interested in
now that Evan
Collins.
Turner is really hitting his stride with the team.
Yeah, I mean, I think Neil Olshey would be a fool to not include Zach Collins if it got them out from underneath Zach Collins or underneath from Evan Turner's contract. Like that deal is such an albatross and such a roadblock to what Portland is able or capable of doing in the future. That a lottery pick is probably the cost associated, and it doesn't mean Zach Collins. I'm just saying, just in general, a lottery pick, and that's probably where we are with that. So, I think you have to think about it in that sense, because if you're talking about Portland's team right now, Zach Collins isn't going to give you what you need right now. Like if this, and I hate to bring up this comparison because it's not fair, really.
Are you going to say 2 years away from 2 years away again?
No, I'm going to say Donovan.
You're going to owe me $5.
I'm going to go with Donovan Mitchell. Like, if this was Donovan Mitchell, you're clearly not
That's
trading
$10
him.
every time you bring up Donovan Mitchell.
But we're talking about timelines here and how they impact Portland. Like, Zach Collins could end up being good down the road. It's not going to happen right now. So the blowback from that trade, people are going to be irritated and frustrated about it immediately. But they're not going to. You're not going to. I don't think you're going to see the repercussions of it immediately. Does that make sense? Like, it'll be 2 or 3 years down the road before you go, that trade sucked. Or, hey, that worked out great for us.
Up for number 10?
No. I mean, if they moved Collins, to clear Evan Turner's, if they moved Turner's to clear Evan Turner's contract.
If they moved Zach Collins along with Evan Turner, and Collins had ended up breaking out in 2 or 3 years and being a fantastic player.
Yeah, I think look back and go, that kind of sucked. Yeah, but I think that the immediate ramifications would be it was necessary to move on from that deal. And not that I think that's necessarily the right play right this second. I could see the reality where that you go, you bite that bullet, but I think you could justify it in the immediate return if you were able to bring in somebody else. But I mean, again, we're opening a can of worms here. That's just there's so many ways in and out of it that it's kind of wonky.
I have one more sort of trade scenario question that I saw. I think it was again on Twitter. So sorry to everybody who isn't on Twitter all the time and is like, "Oh my God, stop
Get
talking
on
about Twitter." But one thing that I saw the other day was another player who has a higher probability of being on the way out of his current situation, and that's DeAndre Jordan on the Clippers. Maybe possibly wanting out. Clippers unsure whether or not they're going to pull it back together, if they should just blow it up. So it seems like DeAndre Jordan is somebody who is
if you're the Clippers
out there.
If you're the Clippers, get rid of DeAndre Jordan. Shop him. Get what you can for him.
But one thing that I saw is somebody said something about him in Portland, and you were just like emphatic no.
It was
an
emphatic no for trading him for
why.
CJ McCollum. That's what I was emphatically knowing about.
Okay, so it wasn't that necessarily that Jordan wouldn't be a fit in Portland. Because how Dunk Stan.
Yeah, no. Like, if you could get DeAndre Jordan, some theoretical world.
For somebody besides CJ McCollum. But you wouldn't give up CJ for him.
But not only that, you'd have to have a package in place basically to trade Nurkic or Collins, or both.
Because you wouldn't need.
Because you have DeAndre Jordan who does the things that you want them to do. Like, then you've got so many bodies in that position, you're just like, what's going on? Like, DeAndre Jordan, if you have Damian, CJ, and DeAndre Jordan, you've got you've got gravity at the paint and on the perimeter. Like, there are definitely some things that can be done there. Like the fit for the team. And this is another one of those trades that we've talked about, kind of kicked around for a few years. Sure, he could fit in Portland. Do I think he's the best fit? Not really. I think there's better fits for him.
Is he a better fit than Nurkic?
No, because Nurkic does have the capacity to throw the ball into and post up. Like that's a viable
And DeAndre
thing.
Jordan doesn't post up.
No. And I know there's the new NBA, blah, 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 blah. DeAndre Jordan's offensive threat is roll, catch, dunk, and put back dunk. Like, yes,
And
those
high flying.
Yes, those are great things. But there again, when we talk about like siloed abilities, you don't give DeAndre the ball with 12 seconds on the shot clock and say, poke him with a stick and say, do something.
Okay.
Like, you can do that with Nurkic. So there's definitely some. And what DeAndre Jordan allows you to do defensively is a wider range that you get from Nurkic. They're two vastly different players. I think Nurkic's synergy with Dame and CJ is better than DeAndre Jordan's would be. But DeAndre Jordan does offer some very nice things that Nurkic just doesn't. So, I wouldn't.
What is
be
it about
against it.
CJ that you value more than you do about what DeAndre Jordan does?
CJ's one of the best shooters in the entire NBA and has been.
So just the pure shooting and the scoring.
Yeah, he can create his own shot. He can create a shot for others. Like, his skill set is very, very unique in the NBA. People are like, shooters are a dime a dozen. No, they're not. If they were a dime a dozen, if they're a dime a dozen, CJ or JJ Redick wouldn't get a $23 million deal from the 76ers. Like, the shooters are expensive. Shooting is expensive. It is a premium thing. There's nobody in the NBA who's out there who has consistently been a great shooter from multiple levels, who can create their own shot, who's making, very little money.
So basically, you don't send CJ out unless you know exactly where those extra 20 points or those 20 points are coming from.
Exactly. Like, it's either that or it becomes like a committee thing. Like, I've had people throw out the CJ and somebody else for Aaron Gordon and Evan Fournier. Like, okay, like, you've got my attention. Like, that's something I've kind of talked myself into over the last couple of weeks.
And that's because those are two shooters.
Well,
are they both shooters?
Yeah, Aaron Gordon's turned into a 3-point shooter, which is crazy. Evan Fournier, I would. Some people like to say they play him at the 3. I don't like him at the 3 because of his size. But you're getting multifaceted players, and you're getting production on both ends from those guys. And I think, to me personally, it'd be really fun if you threw out a lineup of Dame, Fournier, Aminu, Gordon, Nurkic. Like, that's a fun lineup, fun team to watch right there. Like, the way you could basically spread the floor and go at guys. And plus, Aaron Gordon loves to have, you're talking about a dunk champion type dunker. Like, if you love dunks, there you go.
Is Gordon much of a ball handler, or is he mostly catch and shoot?
He can create off the bounce. He's a legit stretch 4. Like, he's a 3-4 hybrid. If you wanted to, you could go ultra small and play him. It's like, if Stoss wanted to go small ball lineups, like, you could throw out Dame, like, in this theoretical trade. You could throw out Dame, Fournier if you wanted the shooting, Harkless, Aminu, Gordon. Like, and you could be relatively long basically everywhere. Like, the only place you're really, quote unquote, giving up height is with Damian Lillard. Like, you could change the entire makeup of the team if you did something like that. Whereas with DeAndre Jordan, you're severely limiting and siloing your offensive capacity. Like, you're taking one of the most creative players in the league offensively in CJ McCollum and replacing him with one of the most limited offensive players in the league. Like, everything that DeAndre Jordan does offensively has to be set up for him. He doesn't lob to himself.
Right, and everybody knows exactly what it's going to be. They just might not be able to stop it, but they know exactly what it's going to be. But with CJ, you don't know necessarily what he's going to try.
Yeah, there's a scouting report that CJ likes to go this way or likes to go that way, likes to pull up from here. But he has 8 different ways.
That's what he does.
Yeah, he has 8 different ways to get there. And he has a move to a counter move to a counter move. DeAndre's like, hey, just throw it up, I'll go get it. Like I said, it's a great skill set. But there's definitely different outcomes in both those opportunities.
I was so glad CJ got that last shot tonight.
He was due.
Eventually, it was going to go down.
Yeah, he really, really needed one. I've gone back and forth with a few people on Twitter about it over the last couple months. It's like he's had some good, clean looks, and you're like, man, that's a shot that he hits. Like, you can only say that's a shot that he hits 8 out of 10 or 9 out of 10 times, like, so many times before you're like, maybe that's a shot he only hits 2 out of 10 times.
Yeah, so, maybe that's just not going to be his. Like, it was glad to see it go in tonight.
Yeah, it was huge. So for him to be able to get the game winner like that, I was stoked for him.
So I also want to point out about tonight's game against San Antonio. The crowd was into it tonight, and it's been a while
for the
since
first
the
time in
crowd
a while. They've been dead.
It was electrifying. It was really, really fun. There were a couple San Antonio fans behind us, but everyone else were Blazer fans. And it was just nice to be in that atmosphere. It's just been kind of
to not be in study hall
this year. Yeah, it was nice to have everybody, but it was a pretty, Manu I knew was going to go off because he always does, because he always plays beautifully in front of me because he knows that I love him, but it was a pretty evenly played game, and LaMarcus got booed when he was taking free throws.
How about LaMarcus missing late game free throws? Oh, that was familiar.
Yeah, CJ missed a couple of late game, not in a row, but CJ also missed some free throws. But it was a pretty friendly game. But the game in Cleveland, they got a little chippy in there. Nurkic that was Atlanta, was the where he walked by him. It was did he headbutt him?
Yeah, no, that was Taurean Prince.
That was Atlanta.
He did it with Jay Crowder in Cleveland too.
Yeah, so things have been a little tricky. And so one of the things that you mentioned on Blazers Outsider that I wanted to explore a little bit more is that you said that players shouldn't be friends.
Yes.
And so why?
Absolutely.
Why shouldn't
I want rivalries.
Why do they have to all be just sworn enemies? Why can't they be people who are playing an excellent game excellently, be competing against each other? But why do they have to be mad at each other and not be friends?
What good storylines come from everything being good? Rooting against Russell Westbrook.
Kind of a question
no,
is
seriously,
that,
in sports. Seriously, in sports, it's you have to have a bad guy. You have to. Russell Westbrook is the villain. Always being angry and hating KD for leaving. That's a constant storyline. It's like WWE. You have to have a heel. Nurkic is absolutely Portland's heel.
But there's also a whole game involved in basketball.
Yeah, this is the sub game. I don't if there's anything that I've ever been critical of the Damian Lillard persona is that he's not enough of a jerk. I want my guy to be a little bit of a jerk. I want him to Dame time in somebody's face. Tap the wrist, right in their face. You know what time it is?
So you're not.
I love that about CJ.
You're not saying that the players shouldn't actually be friends.
No, I want them to be enemies too.
You also want them to be enemies. Off the court, you want them to be enemies.
I like the way Joel Embiid and Russ Westbrook were just going at each other when the Thunder beat the 76ers on Christmas. That back and forth, Russ telling Embiid to go home, and then Embiid getting on camera and saying, he told me to go home, but I am home, so what do I do? Just constantly trolling. I want those rivalries.
Do you think that lasted longer than a day? I mean, those two are caricatures.
They'll keep going.
Caricatures.
I love that Nurkic. Nurkic and the Nuggets. Nurkic and the Nuggets. Have a great summer vacation. That was great. Clearly, he has some animosity towards. He has animosity towards the organization. Right. And Nuggets fans, they were livid about that. I absolutely because if you start talking, you have to back it up. Yeah. Otherwise, you get eaten alive. And I think that's part of the fun for me.
I think it's a little impractical to think that these guys who grew up together, playing against each other.
And that's the problem is these AAU circuits. Yeah, these guys are all friends. Now. Yeah, no, I mean they're all friends now because they're all around each other in these elite camps and stuff like that. I don't know. Maybe it's a little get off my lawny, but I do pine for the older times.
It's real get off my lawny, Uncle Dan.
I'm fine with that.
Real get off my lawny.
I'm okay dying on that hill. I am absolutely okay with dying on that hill because to me, it's more entertaining.
I think it makes it more interesting that they have all this rich history together. And I think it makes it when
what's more attention grabbing? LeBron James and Chris Paul riding on the banana boat together. Oh yay! Hey, we're having fun summertime. Or Russell Westbrook constantly subtweeting and calling KD a snake. Like what's
Okay, I do get a lot of pleasure out of that last one.
Okay, right? That's my point. Like you need to have that in order to really drive everything. Like it.
But
I think there are limits to these
game.
things. Oh, I think it makes the game much more enjoyable. Like when the perfect example, CJ McCollum and Evan Fournier. CJ calling him, what does he say? He's soft as the crepes that he eats.
Yes.
And then blowing him kisses.
Kissing and pointing. Yes.
Yeah, that was absolutely glorious because now
But that's
now what do you
taunting
want?
each other in the game. Are you saying that they like actually don't like each other and they shouldn't be friends?
Oh, I'm fairly
messing
certain
around?
there are some guys in the league that the Portland Trailblazers players do not like whatsoever.
Right.
Like,
But
I almost guarantee that if you gave Damian Lillard true serum, he absolutely disdains and hates Patrick Beverley with every fiber of his being.
Huh.
I bet you Russell Westbrook can say the same thing. And I think that makes things more entertaining. When there's true animosity between guys, I think that the level of competition and the emotion that draws is magnetic. Like you can't take your eyes off the TV. Like when that first matchup happened between Westbrook and KD. Remember how they all the lead up to it, and then the post game they said, "Oh, we didn't say anything, we didn't do anything," and you could read both their lips as they're going at it, as they're jawing at each other. There were some things said. When they talk about how, oh no, nothing was said there. It's like there's like 38 cameras in the arena, dude. We all saw everything both of you said. Clearly there's some animosity there. And if Russ says he's perfectly fine and okay and never does any of those things when KD left, and he's like, no man, I wish him the best success, and that's his choice, and ultimately I'm 100% behind him. He's my buddy, he's my friend, we've known each other forever, blah 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 blah. Does that storyline really interest you as much?
No, the storyline doesn't interest me as much, but I don't necessarily know that
You're not tuning in for
the
it.
actual game of basketball better.
I see. I would disagree. I would disagree because of the level that it goes to. Like when the pettiness really gets in there, when the real petty, that's when you get like absolutely stupid stuff happening. That's when you start getting like the one-on-one battles. Like, okay, fine, I'm gonna pull from 35 and make you look stupid. Like I love it when that happens because then you get, whether it's successful or not, then you get those moments that are like, what was he doing? Mm-hmm. And I think that's more entertaining.
I get it. I see what you're saying about how it makes the storyline more enjoyable. It gets us all more bought in. If you know,
come on, Tara, let the hate flow through you.
I'm not going to let the hate flow through me because I think it's asking too much of them to be like, you guys grew up together, you played together.
Be more excellent in 2018. Let the hatred flow through you.
So you're saying being excellent, embracing excellence is just, I've seen a lot of people who embrace excellence just being more crabby than the rest of us. Is really kind of what it all comes down to.
Crabby is like subtweeting hatred.
But I don't think that you can tell these guys not to be friends.
I will, because
I think actually their friendships make a lot of compelling storylines. Look what's going on in Cleveland. With Wade coming back to be with LeBron. I think that's awfully interesting, and I think that's fun, and I think I'm entertained by that storyline. Of course, they're on the same team now.
Like, yeah, I think it makes for
ask them to not be friends. I think that's
and
just
brighter
too
moments.
Much.
Like LeBron's IG post of him and Dwayne Wade like sipping wine with Gabby Union. Like that was funny. That was entertaining. But I don't think it's necessarily a storyline. I think it makes for fun tidbits here or there. But it's not something that kind of like carries the weight of throughout the season. Whereas some of the storylines really go season long.
Right. Well, I still think you're being a get off my lawn old man about it.
I'm perfectly fine dying on that hill. Like it's kind of funny because I've died like 3 times on hills this year. Like one of them for being old man and petty, one for Coach Stotts, and one for still liking LaMarcus. So I may be part feline here because I've died on a lot of hills.
Yeah, already. Well, one last question that I've been wanting to ask you all week because we haven't had a chance to talk yet. Let's see. So Isaiah Thomas made his debut with the in the Portland Trail Blazer game.
Storylines.
Yeah, that one I'm over. But now the talk is when Isaiah Thomas goes back to Boston, they want to play the tribute video for him, but that's
Paul Pierce's jersey
that they're going to be.
Yep.
Yes, they're going to be retiring Paul Pierce's jersey, and Paul Pierce does not think that a tribute video is appropriate on that night. How do you feel about tribute videos?
First of all, I'd just like to point out here that Isaiah Thomas is not really a fan of Danny Ainge. So again, storyline. Paul Pierce wants this to be about him. Storyline. Again, not happy with things, angry, petty. I'm all for it. I'm okay with tribute videos. Like if you wanted to bring up a contentious tribute, let's say LaMarcus makes good with Portland.
Well, when was the last time you can remember Portland doing a tribute video for somebody who hadn't just recently died?
When was the last time Portland had a player worth doing it for? Like Brandon.
Oh, ouch. What about, did they have Brandon Roy when he came back with Minnesota?
I don't think things were going well then. Like between
right.
Brandon and the organization. And same with Nick. Like there were not.
I don't think things were going that bad.
Well, I know the deal with Brandon was not going well when he went to Minnesota. That wasn't good
because the Blazers had to pay a bunch of money.
Yeah, so clearly they're not going to be happy about that at that point in time. And it took Brandon really some time to come back to a Blazers game.
Right. Yeah.
I think eventually Portland should and could do one for Brandon. But I'm completely and totally biased. I mean, if not my favorite player in NBA history, he's up there because of what he did and how he did it. I'm all for it. But I mean, if you look at Portland's top flight,
what about Will Barton? They could give one to Will Barton.
It would be hilarious. That's for sure. Like if they could just do his IG post for all of his outfits that he wore in Portland. Like I could enjoy that.
That's one player that I would love to have back. Do you think he would fit on this team?
Oh God, yes. He would be a perfect fit on this team. Shooting, playmaking, defensive versatility, pushing the pace, just being a wild card. Like I love.
He was so much fun to watch. There was nobody that looked more like he loved playing basketball than Will Barton.
Yeah, every time he's on the court, like you can tell, like there's a few guys in the league that they are having fun every second they're on the floor, and it's infectious. Yeah. I think Will would be phenomenal. I mean, I don't think there's a team that Will Barton doesn't fit on. Like I think that's a testament to he not just what he brings, like basketball wise, but personality wise. Like the only team I could see him like not fitting on in professional sports is the Patriots because they don't like fun. Like that's basically it. Like every other like professional sports team would be like, you know what, we'll take Will Barton because he would just be fun. Like I could see him like on his hometown, Baltimore Orioles, like fielding, like he'd be like the Yasiel Puig of the Baltimore Orioles. Like he'd just be out there like bat flipping all the time and taking his time like trotting on home run trots. And he'd just do it with some style and some swag, and I'd love every minute of it. Like Will Barton, Will the Thrill is the man. Like I absolutely love him.
The people's champ. I love him so much.
Yes.
So I would get, we could give him a tribute video.
But
maybe after
that's
you
the thing. Like we don't
video
have
for
anybody.
The footwork.
Yes, I will pull out my video editing skills that I have not used in quite some time and do a Will Barton tribute video. I think the problem with tribute videos, or not the problem, but I mean the reason Portland hasn't had tribute videos is because they haven't had anybody they can blow a tribute to. Like Brandon, LaMarcus, Greg were gonna be the guys, and none of them are here, and all of them left under less than great circumstances. I mean that's just the bottom line of it. Brandon's probably the first in line. I think you probably want to do his before you do Damian's. When he I know that the time period's weird. One you could possibly do is Bill Walton, since Bill has kind of accepted the Blazers back into his life. Like that's one you could go to right now.
They had the whole 77 team tribute.
Yeah, which was cool to have Walton back there for that. I think that was cool. But I don't think they should be retiring anybody else's jersey anytime soon. So you're not going to have that, because I think that's what they're doing. Yeah, that's what they're doing for Pierce in Boston. So they've got 47 jerseys in the rafters now. Guys are going to be stuck wearing 86 for Boston, which is, I think that
would be a great number.
I think Jerebko wore 86. Now that I think about it,
that would be a great number.
But yeah, I mean, that's really Portland's problem, is they haven't had anybody, I think, worthy of that. And I think they've kind of teetered that line with jersey retirements by themselves. So
right. Well, maybe in a couple of years, we're going to look back to this week and go, you know what? When the Blazers really turned it around and became serious and became a real contender, it was that kind of like that second week in January of 2018. And they'll be writing about it in the history books of when the big turnaround came along. But in the meantime, that's about all the questions that I have for tonight. You got anything else that we didn't discuss that you wanted to bring up?
Nope, not basketball-wise per se, but we do have Blazers Edge night coming up. And as you guys have seen on the front page of Blazers Edge, that we are down to the final 400. That means we have 400-ish tickets that we still need, so we can send 2,000 underprivileged youth to a Blazers basketball game in February to see the Sacramento Kings. I
gave 2 more the other day.
Yes, I have given mine. I have gotten my family to donate theirs. I'm probably going to donate 1 or 2 more in my nephew. I'll probably do 2 more. 1 for my nephew, 1 for my niece in their name.
Nice.
The ticket range is, I believe, $9 to $22. If you have the opportunity, we're getting to the time crunch where Dave's obviously managing all this. We don't want him to ever have to tell anybody who wants to ask no. Like, we have 2,000, we want to give away 2,000. We've never ever had to do that, to just tell anybody no. So we don't want to ever do that. So if you have the means, if you have the capacity, if you have the ability to donate the $22 tickets, please do. If you can't afford that and you can only afford the $9 tickets, please do. Whatever you can do, please, 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 please. I don't push for people to give away their hard-earned money for much, but this is one of those causes. As simple as it is, it can be life-changing for these kids. It's the look on their faces and the absolute joy that these kids experience is absolutely heartwarming and tear shedding. It's an absolutely awesome experience. And if you have the capacity to donate and go to the game, I would encourage you, because it's a really, really awesome experience to see 10% of the Moda Center filled up with kids who are basically at their game for the first time. So, if you can donate, please do.
That's a great push for it. Yeah, let's get over that 2,000 number and make sure that all the kids get to go. All right, you want to take us out of here, Dan?
Yep, I will go ahead and take us out of here for, actually, you know what? I will do my spiel, and then I will let you take us out of here, because you're the host tonight. You wanted to call the shots. You can find me on social media.
Don't mess with me.
Yes. On social media, on Twitter, at DMarang. That's at DMARANG. The social media handle, Danny Marang, is now sticking. You can find me on NBC Sports Northwest. Yeah, thanks for that. On Blazers Outsiders on non-game days at 7 p.m. That's it for me. Tara, go ahead.
All right. I can be found at TCB on Twitter. You can also, twice a month, we add Women's Hoops and Talks podcast to the Blazers Edge podcast, and you can follow us on Twitter at Hoops and Talks. If you follow us on Twitter, then you can get those episodes as soon as they come out. And we also have a Hoops and Talks meetup coming up on Sunday, January 14th. The Blazers are taking on the Minnesota Timberwolves. We're going to be gathering at McMiniman's on Broadway to watch the Blazers take on the Timberwolves and hopefully beat the Timberwolves. So thanks for listening, everybody, and we will catch you next week.